Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Epic Maps. We have Scott and Nicole with us this week to talk about entrepreneurship, the good, the bad, the messy, everything in between. And so today we're just going to have, a fun conversation with them about their journey, what they've learned, how they failed, and how they can help you through it all. So I have kind of some questions that I want to go through, but feel free to put your own questions in the chat. And if you can't see the chat, we'll have some time later on that you can unmute and ask all the questions that you come up with as well. But Scott, Nicole, what I'm thinking with is let's just start off with your backgrounds, a little bit about yourself. And maybe your connection to UTA. So let's say, Scott, do you want to start off?
I'm going to say ladies first.
Yes.
Oh man. Okay. What a gentleman. Thank you. So let's see. Nicole, I have a finance background, and I actually, after going to college at 18, had no idea what I wanted to do and basically dropped out after the first semester. Ended up with my beautiful daughter and went to UTA and said, okay, clearly I need a career. Where do I need to go? What kind of degree? Ended up in the business school and was inspired by one of my professors to go into finance because he made numbers seem like they applied to everything. So got my undergrad and then my master's at UTA. Love the school. It's amazing. And since then, did finance and corporate finance for a decade. And during a corporate relocation, decided that I wasn't going to move and instead started Envoy. I hired the technical team of our organization that wasn't moving and negotiated to sell our services back to our old employer in an outsourced model. So the things that I learned and being a part of the UTA family kind of set me up to be able to take these risks as the time came. So a little summary about me. Scott?
Awesome. I'm Scott Parsinen. I am, for the remaining next handful of months, the CEO of Cadmus Dental. That's part of today's story. I was a Lego kid and a napkin drawing kid, and so I kind of always had that in me to just create and draw and figure things out. Um, and somewhere along the way, I thought, I don't want to be like my dad, who's a business guy, and like most kids, rebelling against their parents and wanting to do something different. So I started down the pre-med path and ended up starting at SMU as a pre-med kid, and realized quickly that I really hated that. And I loved the lab, and I loved tinkering and playing with toys and all the tools and all that stuff. But I did not like the bookwork part of that, and was really a hands-on person. So transferred to UTA and really found where I belonged. And I really loved my time at UTA and met a lot of great people and joined some great organizations. And, came back later on after being in technology and biotechnology to UTA to start Cadmus. Where we started it up in the startup lounge and went through several epic mavs and stayed plugged in and met some great people along the way. And we'll get more to that whole story later on. But that's where my journey started was later on in life. And I've had other ventures that I've been involved in, but the one that we'll talk about mostly today was the one that started at UTA.
Awesome. Wonderful. And just one of the places that I want to start today is at the beginning of those journeys. So how many years has it been with both of your current ventures? And what do you think was the moment when you kind of hit your stride with the organization?
Scott, you can go first.
Thank you. We were talking earlier, kind of preparing for this call and about what that moment was. I really was fine. We had come off of our first exit, and the company that bought us seemed like a great opportunity. So went into corporate America and biotech, and you get to that moment after an exit, and you're like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. You let somebody else run the show, and I can just kind of sit back and do my thing, do what I'm part of what I'm good at, and not have to worry about all the headaches. And so I did that for a while, but then, like most big companies that are, especially in technology along the way, got bought out. And so I had to really decide, do I want to do this again, or do I want to just find another corporate job and stay on? And so I had that moment with my boss. My boss said, do you really want to do this and go through another acquisition? And I said, nah. And he said, that's about what I thought, expected. So I took some time off, and I went and talked to my father, and we had already done one startup and exit together. And so decided to make one run at it with, me leading the way and building the team. And it took a while. We hit the startup lounge, and we whiteboarded quite a bit. We had a couple different paths that we were going to head down. And so, first we were going to raise money and acquire an already existing business, and that didn't work out, and that deal fell through. And so we had to pivot a couple times just before we ever, you say, when did we hit our stride? I don't even really think we got running until probably 2 or 3 years in. And so once we got to that point, I was thankful very much for already having been in a situation where we had an exit and a lot of the investors came back. That was really helpful to kind of give us an opportunity to figure out, who we were and what we wanted to be when we grew up. And it took about 3 years before we kind of figured, okay, this is really where the market needs us, and this is where we're going to kind of focus on.
Oh, so I love to hear other stories of people who kind of hit their stride, because I look back at how Envoy started with a whale of a client, our former employer, and just when we would get comfortable, something would hit us out of nowhere. Whether it's our big client we became too dependent on and they cut their budget and we had to pivot, or it's taking on that client because you rationalize they're going to be a real challenge, but we're good enough and we're a good enough team, we can overcome the challenge and make it work. And then it turns out the revenue wasn't worth the trouble that it caused to the team. Or now it's the pandemic. And so every time it feels like things got comfortable was the moment that they got turned on their head. So it's almost like hitting my stride as a constant roller coaster. And if I get comfortable, I start to immediately think something else is about to kind of come my way and challenge me again. So I don't think I've hit my stride, unless that's sort of like just an average bananas, to be honest. Yeah.
And I would like you to talk about that more, because I mean, as entrepreneurs, you have to be resilient, but that's so much easier said than done. So what have you guys relied on during those challenging times that really push you through to continue?
So I think it's the challenging time in and of itself. So for example, our former employer cut our budget huge. And the first theory was you have to let people go. And it was a crisis and we didn't know what to do. And because we had to come together as a team and try to figure out how we were going to grow and get revenue and keep our team together, like that sort of think tank environment and being able to come to the table and be vulnerable and sort of brainstorm together actually brought us closer. And I've seen that kind of happen over and over again. Last fall, when things seemed to be going well, we had a personal family crisis. And so it's like between the family and the team, we had to get together and figure out how to get through it and make ourselves stronger. So it feels like recognizing that when you lean into a troubling time, often if you can make it through, there's something really great on the other side. And by being put in an uncomfortable position, you're challenged enough to get through, like recognizing that good things come after going through tough times too. I think that's really important for everyone, especially in this day and age, is to lean into those moments and build your personal connections and be open and honest and work through it together. Because the worst thing you can do is fail, right? Or you can actually come out stronger on the other side. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
I think that that's a we talked about that earlier today as well. Failing is a very interesting term. I think a lot of people, when they look at failure, you're some people view that as, what my original idea was didn't work out, or the company, the way I set it up, didn't work out. I don't really think that that's a failure. I think, you just go a different direction. It's like, it's if you're one of those people, I am very impatient. So like if I am about to get on the highway and I see the highway stacked up for miles ahead of me, I don't get on the highway, and I'll go down the frontage road and I'll start zipping around back roads, and I'll try to get to where I'm eventually going a different way. And sometimes that leads to some great drives, like through countryside, and it takes you actually longer than if you had just got on the highway and been patient and waited it out. But that is not me. And I am just a go person. So when I've hit roadblocks or things that have happened, we hit one early on as well. Nikole, was really funny because in not funny, haha, but it's odd that in that sense, the company that we were going to buy right out of the bat, the guy that we were going to buy lost his stepson. And it was just like, it was gut wrenching because he's a friend, and I didn't know his kid and all of that. And I just knew that it was really tough. But I was in that mode of like, I've got to get this company started, and I'm raising money, and I've got to keep going. And so, because it wasn't my own personal tragedy, it didn't mean I didn't feel bad for what was going on, but that's what prompted me. Okay, that's a traffic jam in my path, and I just got to go a different direction. So we just went in a different direction and started calling other people, and other people that were going to be part of it in a different way of the puzzle. I said, Mike's not going to be a part of this anymore, and he's just going through some personal stuff, and so the way that we plan A is not going to work. Like, what's plan B, and let's get a plan C. And so they came down to the startup lounge, and we whiteboarded for a whole weekend, and we just sat there and said, okay, let's try this way. And you just, sometimes the adversity and stuff is, like you said, it's the challenges that fuel you. And so it's just, I felt like, for me anyway, that's really what just pushed me, was like, okay, here's a obstacle. I'm like, okay, well, that obstacle is not going to stop us. We're moving on. We're just going a different direction.
Yeah. And so going off of that, both of you have just mentioned how important the community you built around you was during those challenging times. So, how did you go about building those communities? Because I think that looks different for every entrepreneur. Some hold it very close to them, some tell everybody about it and bring their family in. So, how did you go about building teams and your family units kind of with your entrepreneurial venture in mind?
You want to go? You want to go first?
I'll say what I told you earlier, and I know you'll be able to take the baton and go a lot harder and farther on that topic. I'm in my 50s. I have kids that are in their 20s, and one, we just have no more teens. The last birthday was last week, so I've watched them grow up. I love technology, and I love what the devices can bring us and stuff. But I've watched my own kids, unfortunately, get stuck behind the screens a lot more than I would like them to. And while they're maybe getting a lot of good knowledge and information, what they're lacking is the building of a network for whatever that is, whether that's professional or personal, the ability to socialize with people, the skills it's going to develop to be able to speak. If you're ever going to raise money and you've got to, how do you get to a 30-second polished elevator speech if you can't even like express who you are and where you grew up? So you have to be able to just like talk, and like what we're doing now. And I really hope that we'll be really interactive with this. And I do want to pause here in a minute and like, take some questions and on what we've already talked about. But I will say that, networking is everything, but it's the skills of learning to talk to people that help you build that network. You have to, if you go on social media and you see somebody that has a cool post, do something crazy. Reach out to them and say, "Hey, man, I really liked your post. Can we get together and have a coffee?" I really, what you described in 45 words on Twitter or wherever, that doesn't, I know there's a lot more depth to that. I'd love to hear that story. Like, can we get together and you explain that to me and take that leap? Yeah, sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes there is some discomfort and there's not a lot of, super interaction. But I think the more you try and the more you build those skills, it helps you in every other aspect to network, to have the people around you that you later need. But you got to get out from behind the screen. You got to talk to people.
Yeah, I agree. And to take it one step further, I wouldn't have started Envoy if I didn't already have like an invested personal relationship with the team and we had been through things together. And the accidental entrepreneurship was really started by wanting to keep a team together and to continue to work with people I like and do projects that challenged us. And if you look at it from my side, I have a finance company and an IT company, and they're both technical sort of backgrounds, but the majority of what I do every day is interact with people. And so we choose relationships with people that we enjoy working with, that we can have a conversation with, and showing that genuine interest in other people just because you want to know about them and not because you might need them because of whatever venture you're on. That curiosity to get to know people and to reach out and be connected, it was those relationships that then supported me and encouraged me when I needed something and I didn't even ask for it. But the genuine relationship now more than ever is foundational. It's more important than any task you could check off your to-do list any day. So start with a valid, genuine relationship. And that's your community, no matter what you decide to do.
Amen to that.
Thank you.
I love that. And yeah, like Scott said, please feel free to raise your hand if you have a question. I'll keep going with some of the conversation, but you can use the reactions if you unmute. If you can just somehow signal me that you have a question, go ahead, let me know. So one of the next things that I want to go off of for that is, how have you kind of changed over the years? Like, what have you learned over the years that you think has really changed kind of, the path that your business is on and that you are on, that has really helped, like lessons learned along the way?
Okay, I'll start this one because it's so fresh. Starting a new company, I felt like I had to do everything all the time and be everything to everyone. And you just go, 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 task list, check it off, keep going, move forward. And it's this constant activity that isn't always necessarily progress. And I referred to kind of like a personal family situation that happened. I was so busy like doing the task list that not only did I miss what was going on around me, but I was wasting my skill set and I was spending a whole lot of energy on things that did not bring me joy and were a mismatch for what it is that I actually brought to the table and how I could impact those around me. So I was kind of forced, and this is not the only time, it's just the freshest example. I was forced to step back and say, wait a second, I'm so busy that I'm not living and doing the things that matter. So I think if you can have those conversations with yourself earlier on in your entrepreneurship adventure and say, what is my purpose? Where does my joy come from? How do I best serve those around me? And then back to the community, augment my team with people that have the skill sets that I don't. That would have saved me a ton of trouble over the last 7 years. And recognizing that surrounding yourself with smart, intelligent people that can bring value to the table too, you can do more together. So what's happened recently is by examining my wasted time and where my energy goes, I've changed what I spend my time on, and my business has changed as a result of that. So being able to do that self-reflection and really, seriously, what brings you joy? We're enough being busy all the time. You have to choose what you do every day with purpose. That's my biggest lesson learned. And it happened so many times that I finally had to be like smacked upside the head with it so near and dear that it's like, okay, maybe I need to reevaluate. So that personal reevaluation is important.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that story, and Scott, I definitely want to hear from you next, but I think that really resonates with a lot of people. And even at the start of the pandemic, everybody kind of got that little bit of a break at the very start of it to be like, whoa, what am I doing with my time and my life and, all of this energy? So I think that's really important. I'm glad you brought that up. That's cool. And Scott, yes, lessons learned.
This one has been the hardest thing I've ever been involved in. I just realized that there's a whole lot out there that is not in your control. And, we've been hit with so many things, just like I talked about a second ago about, the friend's company that we were going to acquire. And then they went through personal family tragedy. And then, so we went a different direction and bought a different company in an asset acquisition. And that person that we inherited with the asset acquisition wasn't the right person. And so you have the initial feel of like, okay, I'm starting to get this team built. And I think, I don't know. I've had this discussion with my wife. I think for me, I feel like what we did was the right thing as a human. I think sometimes being a human gets involved in the best business decisions. Sometimes people will look at you and say, well, you're a good person, but if your company died, you have to make that decision. Do you want to say, okay, well, we did the right thing as a person, but the company suffered, or, what do you do? It's everybody's a different situation. We went from one thing to another for having the wrong people, getting another person we interviewed that came so highly um, recommended, and figured out who we were. Finally hit that stride, and we thought, okay, now we know what's going on. And somewhere in there, my dad got leukemia. My dad was my partner, my financial guy, strategy, all that. Obviously a great mentor, and didn't see that one coming. Thought, okay, we'll gut through this one. Got offered to be acquired. That fell apart at the end of that same year. We thought, okay, we'll pick ourselves up, go into the next year, and this will be our year. Well, that was 2020, and it really makes you realize, I think, that along the way, a lot of things are going to happen, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. It's really emotional. It's really hard. But like Nikole said, when you have things that hit close to home, you realize that happiness and family and that aspect of your life still should be the priority. If you're an entrepreneur, or you kind of stumbled into it, or you figured out that that's what you like, focus on the things that make you happy. Focus on the things that are the really important things of life, because for me, I'm still kind of a young guy. I mean, I got a while until I feel like until I'm going to retire. So I got a lot left in me. Does that mean necessarily after this experience that I'm going to run out there and start another company? No, probably not. But I mean, I've had my fair share of that, but I still do have a lot of other things left in me, and projects and work and stuff to give back. And like John said, I mean, and Matt said as well, coaching is really important. And these kind of calls and everything that we're doing are important to share your experiences and give back so that other people can hopefully have a little bit of an easier time. Our whole story has not been a real pretty one, but that doesn't mean it's the end. It's certainly not the end for me. It's just a different phase of life. This chapter closes, and now it's time to open the new one and move on.
Wonderful. And I just want to thank you guys for being so honest today. I know sometimes everybody dresses up, the business journey, and it's easy when you're at the end of it to say, "Oh yeah, look at how wonderful it's been." So I appreciate y'all diving into where it does get messy and where it does get hard. Um, and one of the things I want to talk about, I know in the chat they're saying great advice, and stuff like that. What do you wish you would have known, maybe like the day you started your company, that would have maybe saved you a year or saved you so much time? Maybe that was in hiring, or maybe that was in the pace that you set for yourself.
Oh, Scott and I were talking about this earlier. I hate these questions. These like pause, rewind. What do you wish
Uh-huh.
you'd known? Because it's like if I had known different, I wouldn't be where I am today. So each of those mistakes and each of those successes was there for a reason, and that's why we're here, is to learn and grow. I guess the two things I said earlier would be my response, like to anyone starting a business, right? You're gonna have passion. Spend your time with people that you enjoy, because it's just work. Time with people you enjoy, doing something with your gifts. And as long as you do that, even though you'll have ups and downs, you'll end up okay at the end of it. So that's really the only way that I can reflect back, is to have that sentiment from here forward.
Yeah. And no stuff is gonna challenge you, you know?
Every day.
I would say, no matter how difficult or blessed you are in having startup capital, get into revenue as fast as possible. I think that, I saw some interesting stats on today on how many people start companies and get into companies that are doing it not out of crisis. So like they actually left their job or had some kind of situation to do that. And I really don't recommend that. I don't recommend like just going cold turkey on a good career you have or whatever, and you're still kind of in tinkering mode, or you're kind of in like figure it out mode. If you can get it to a point where you're making enough money in there, where there's a point, and you'll know what that point is. Like if I could put 50, instead of doing this 25% of my time, if I could put 50% more of my time into this, then I'm going to get to a point where it's paying a salary for me. Okay, well, that's worth it then, right? And then now you're going to dive in, and full time, you'll be in revenue faster, and you'll be able to, pay yourself. But if you're not at that point, right out of the gate, then you either got to, raise capital, build a team quickly, and get into revenue quickly. And if you don't have the people that are helping you to do that, you got to cut bait. I know that was what I was talking about earlier on the human side, and sometimes it's good to have a hatchet person with you on your team when you're building that, and you got to have that person that you sit in the room and you just say, look, it's just not happening. It's not a fit. And it's not even a personal thing. It's just a business thing. If you don't make that decision, then your business may not survive. And you really just got to have enough revenue rolling in to, build the project, build the team. And I think that's, looking back on it all, I wish maybe in evaluating some of those things, I think I just wish we had acted quicker, and made some of the tough decisions that you have to make sometimes when things just aren't a fit.
Yeah. And I guess, we've asked so much about your journey thus far. I'm really interested also in, what do you see for your future? What are you most excited for? What milestones are y'all working towards, goals that you've set for your company?
Mine is short and sweet and
Mhm.
ugly. So, I mean, right now we are in wrap it up mode. I mean, it is what it is. I can be blunt and honest because I've already shed the tears that you shed, and we will have to go through the process of some of them are customers, some are people out there that we're people that we knew of that did a similar type business. And we'll do the best we can to liquidate what we can and try to get our customers and everything in good hands. And we'll partner with some people before we do that so that the transition is smooth. We're not like just shutting the light bulb out and that's it. That's not right. And it's not the smart thing to do. You want to wind things down in such a way that you do that with dignity, take care of customers, take care of people, and you take those lessons and you move on. If you're not going to do it again, help other people do it again, share those lessons and share what you've learned. And for me, that's the stage I'm at. And I hope to really get that opportunity where I can, go work, with, again, a lot of great people that have, been some part of my journey, like Hayden and Blackburn, and for those of you that know him, and plug back into 1 Million Cups and plug back into other part of the startup ecosystem in Arlington and Tarrant County and the greater DFW area. And it's all really, really. I think we're going to see this new wave that's coming in after the pandemic of a lot of great innovation and people that are not going to want to return to the cubicle, and so they're going to want to start a company. And I think that that's a fantastic thing, and it's going to be a fantastic time for us. So we're going to go through I think a good, happy period, and so I look forward to seeing what's next.
No, I love that. So so I do. Envoy has a finance and an IT company, and we started to keep the team together. So when we had challenges, everyone just doubled down and did extra work, more work outside their comfort zone or their skill set to keep the team together. And so as I'm realizing my wasted time, and when I try to put a square peg in a round hole, and it's like you're battling and you don't move forward. As I'm making those changes, our biggest thing in the future is to sort of try to restructure internally and align our team members better with what's going to bring them joy so that they can succeed more, and find more rewarding. Their time at work is more rewarding. And so that's my short-term goal and we're in the process of doing that. Where's your skill set? Where is that need? How do we shift things around? And it's hard because you have to give up something to take on something, and everyone's busy, but we're starting to move in that direction to get people to where the work is more joyful than it used to be. That's number one. So moving towards that. And personally, I've seen a lot of positive reaction when I know that's when I'm putting my effort in the right place, because you feel it, right? You get it back. So we're moving in that direction, and I want that for every team member that we have as well. The second thing, and it's a lesson learned, and I referenced it earlier when I said the revenue wasn't worth it. We had an example about a year and a half ago where we took on a client, and my gut, I knew, is trying to drive the revenue forward, right? We needed revenue, keep our team together, keep the lights on, move forward, etc. And there was a part of me in my gut, and I was like, this is not a great idea. And the team was like, this is not a great idea. And I was like, but that's not how it's going to be. We're awesome enough that we can overcome any challenge and we can make any customer happy. And it was a huge mistake. So even though it was not worth it in the end, it made the team miserable when they had to interact with that customer, and nothing that they ever did was good enough. So going back to that people-centric focus, not only do I want my team members to be inspired to do their job every day, we want to pick customers to partner with that want that too. So learning to say yes and cultivate the right relationships, as well as say no and not feel like no matter what we can overcome it. Those are our two short-term goals. Beyond that, I don't know, because that's enough right now. It's trying to get people to a happy place and trying to be partnered with the right clients. And I think that will drive us forward with a huge momentum.
Yeah, I mean, those are big kind of structural changes, those are big goals. So thank you for giving us some insights into that.
And I just wanted to also add, Nikole, I wanted to, commend you on this. Congrats for making it through this. This has been like the worst time for so many different reasons. But I mean, throw the pandemic in there, and there have been so many people that have just their dreams got crushed, and there are more dreams out there. You're still going to have more dreams, but to make it through this actually and gut through it is gigantic. So I really applaud you for that, and I'm cheering for you, and I'll be one of your biggest fans going forward. So really excited for what the future's got in store for you.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate that. And it reminds me of something else we talked about earlier is remembering to celebrate the victories.
Yes.
Even if it's just barely making it through, or if it's a small sale, but it was a good sale, or your team member feels good about something they accomplished that day. Like any little positive thing, focus on that and don't take it for granted. And it's just so, or your brain's trained to focus on the negative easier. So let those positive things be celebrated. So thank you very much.
I love that.
It looks
I
like some
love
more
that.
people
And
jumped on. I'd love to see if there's anybody out there that's like on the journey right now or got some questions or anything.
I just have a comment that I love how, Nikole, you really think about the culture of your business and a happy customer, or rather a happy employee, in my mind, is going to give you a lot more and contribute and add value a lot more than someone who is counting the hours. So I think that's really just applauding you for having that kind of awareness.
Well, thank you. And I will tell you that we're not there yet. Even in technology with people used to working remote, we do have some internal struggles. And now I can see it in a different lens, right? Because I'm aware of it. You have to acknowledge it before you can change it. But we definitely have some team members that want to do something different. And it's really at a point where we have to make an organizational change so that we can get to the point that we want to be. But it is not all, it's not all roses. We've got some internal struggles. Luckily, we're able to still keep the customer happy and work through it, but it feels like the clock is ticking. So pushing everyone to get to the place that they need to be happy, and all of us moving forward that way, it's like, that's my thing. That's why it's hard to focus a year from now, because in the next month, we need to do X, Y, and Z. So just wanted to acknowledge that it's very, very difficult. But once you acknowledge it, then hopefully you can move forward and make a difference. But thank you.
Oh yeah. I don't think I don't know. I'm sure many entrepreneurs think about it, but I'm always, as a director at school and a professor, am thinking how you can get more of your students, for example, to put bigger efforts in, to see the rewards that they get when they put more effort and contribute more.
Yeah, and then it's hard because with students, they're there to learn, and you got to, I was inspired in college from my earlier statement. I only went because I had a daughter to support, and I didn't have a clue what I was going to do yet until my finance professor he just was like dynamic, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. But until I was inspired, I was just there. So you've got a big challenge on your hands too, to try to engage and get somebody you're going to make that impact and change the direction of their life because you touched them that way. So what you're doing is amazing. And what the UTA community is doing for all of us is so important. It's part of that personal connection. So it's very amazing.
Thank you. And we are so delighted that you guys are still participating and giving back to our students. So thank you, all you guys.
So I just wanted to thank everyone as well. I've been listening the entire time. I was on my phone, but I wanted to jump online video and see everyone. I'm not associated with UT Arlington at all, but I'm a mentor over at VMS NTX. And thank you, Nikole and Scott, for such honesty and heartwarming stories. Very useful, I'm sure, for everyone, and very brave of you to share. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That VMS, I miss seeing everybody getting together in person. That is such a fantastic group, and I was I am proud to still be a part of it. I was really happy to be around everybody around that table, and everybody just wanting to jump in and help out, and all of the different amazing different things that people bring to the table in mentoring groups like that. And I can't encourage that enough. I mean, even though if you're on your journey and you're trying your thing, you can still help out other people. I mean, there are other people out there maybe at one or two stages behind where you are, but you can still help them along the way. And that's kind of in my little story, the little time that I was just with Gazova and kind of working with them and helping them out, and we realized that kind of where they were and who I am, and the way my style is and stuff wasn't a good fit. It does not mean we don't like each other. We started our companies at the same time, practically in the same place, different ages. We could have cared less. I've learned more from those younger people along the way. So age is totally irrelevant. And I really am thankful for any time that I have with entrepreneurs of all ages and all types, and mentoring is a big part of it. And sometimes you end up going out to mentor somebody and you end up being mentored, and that's always a good time.
Yes.
I totally agree with you, Scott. I think what Nikole said in the beginning when she talked about networking, I mean, it's not networking, right? It's talking to people and getting to know people, and and that in itself is the objective, because people are interesting, and maybe along the way something will happen. But meanwhile, you've had a great time getting to know someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When I first started with Tech Fort Worth, when somebody said, "Hey, you should be a part of M Crew," I thought it was to be mentored. And then when they said, no, we want you to mentor, I was like, hold on a second. I haven't been at this long. But anyway, so we ended up in this group, and it was so bi-directional. Like, of course, I gave whatever I could to the team members that we were there with, but being around the other people and throwing ideas on the table and hearing and being inspired to keep going by the entrepreneurs that were in a different stage and still had all that gusto. Like, that was just, that whole community is amazing, of the incubator and the mentoring, and the fact that you really get mentored even when you're mentoring. So it's a complete relationship thing. It's amazing. And I would love to learn more about your organization. It sounds fantastic.
Gosh. And Nikole, I had no idea about that story. That's so funny.
When
and
Brad
I think that's so
like to be what is happening? I was ready to be mentored.
Speaks to just how humble you are. I love it. Let's see. We're totally have time for more open discussion. We kind of ran through a bunch of the big questions that I had. So yeah, I'm opening up the floor to any other questions. I know, was it Lavina was given some quotes by Matt. Was given some quotes from the session and was saying that was really insightful. I like that. Let's I do want to know more. What communities have you guys entered into? You mentioned Tech Fort Worth, and you mentioned what Florence is involved with. Were those the ones that you guys dove into the most? Are you a part of other communities? Have you been able to switch to virtual communities? Are you kind of waiting for them to be back in person? What does that look like for you right now?
I'll just jump in because I mentioned 1 million cups. That was a big part of my journey in the beginning, and that led me, seeking out community and trying to, get as informed as I possibly could. Led me to Hayden, which that opens up a whole nother world of connections for you. I was doing it at UTA. Not until much later did VMS North Texas get started, like Florence was mentioning, and then just a lot of us from the community, different skill sets came together on board through the UT system, and really blessed to be a part of that group, because even just in the UT system campuses here around DFW, is an amazing powerhouse of resources. And so whatever that is that you're going to plug into, there are lots of things like that, and it really is important to find that where you can give back. It is bi-directional. You're going to get back, and if you go into if you go into anything pretty much with the attitude of giving, you are going to get something back. I promise you. So it's been wonderful to be involved with those groups, and all of those have just led to other things. In Arlington, a very, very tight knit community, but in the greater, so to say, 360 West group in Tarrant County, like we're all pretty tight as well. And I love the Dallas folks, and they're their own kind of deal. And UT Dallas and UTA, I think, have a very healthy rivalry on imitating some things that we do, and like what goes on their campuses. And of course, if you go through the fundraising gauntlet, so to say, with the Texas Angel Network, you're going to end up at one of those places anyway, pitching to those groups that associate kind of with those campuses. So it is super important to find those groups, and whether they're small local networking groups or bigger organizations that are a little bit more formal through some of the big schools in the northeast that have kind of trickled into the south. It's really fun to be a part of groups of all different sizes, and very, very rewarding.
I agree with everything he just said, but my last 7 months has been sort of focused on family and figuring out where I needed to pivot and why I was not finding joy and it was actually relatively miserable. So I took a break from, no, I mean, I'm serious, you're laughing, Scott, but we had a really tough season. And so Devin, I had to withdraw from M Crew, and I pulled back from a lot of like networking groups and other things, well, all of them really. And this is my first sort of engagement again with a community group, and I've missed it, by the way. But what I would say is, as I start to dip my foot back into the relationship world, where I spend my time and who I spend it with is going to be the number one factor. So when you have a collaborative environment like this, where you're all there for each other's benefit, it feels very different, and your gut says this is a good way to spend my time, versus some of those other groups that are just like, you're there for the networking and it's all about the sales pitch and all that blah blah blah, like it's not worth it. So trying to focus my time and energy around people that I enjoy and things that bring me joy, that's going to drive any of those events and communities that I get involved with. So
and I didn't mean to be laughing while you were saying that. You know my story now from our previous discussion. I laugh so I don't cry. Like that's a thing. The seasons are definitely tough, and I definitely have had my having to kind of take a step back moments. But as I was telling you earlier today, some of these communities and some of these groups aren't just about business for me, and they've become family to me. They've helped me get through some really, really tough times. And so when the pandemic really first started, like, it was so nice to see everybody kind of coming together and say, how are we going to deal with this? Like, what are you doing? And really just get life advice on how people were managing things differently, because it was every week or month was a totally different month, because no one thought it was going to go on that long. And so all of these groups have become family in some way to me, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah, I would say even though I withdrew, the relationships that I built, like with some of the mentors that I've been on cohorts with, like they were there consistently checking on me. So it is for everyone out there, like that connection, those real valuable connections, that's really the basis of everything.
I mean,
Wonderful.
if I can add.
Courtney. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, we're at time. That's fine. I don't have to say anything. Go ahead, Courtney. Go for it.
Okay, I saw that Brett wanted to get some information from you all on how your degrees have impacted your business success. So as our last parting words from both of you, if you can kind of give us some insight on how being Mavericks led you on your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, so we already talked a little bit about my college start, my initial flop, and then my inspiration when I went back to it. And for me, if I look back, college was where I learned to figure out how to do life and how to take on new challenges and how to navigate new things. It was like the sounding board or the starting point for the real world. And the UTA is pretty fabulous because the classes and the students and the area that it was very interactive and supportive. So being in that environment when you're making all your mistakes, in addition to getting to learn all the amazing content and being inspired by professors, like all around, I look back and I was like, this is life today. It's just that I've grown up a little. So I got 2 degrees from UTA. I went back for my master's by choice. And I know, and I loved it because it's like you're living real life and you're learning how to apply a textbook outside the classroom. And for me, that was pivotal because you can read something and have absolutely no idea how to do anything beyond take a test, or you can be a part of an academic path where you experience, grow, and get involved, and then you can apply it later. So I think my degree gave me the skill sets to handle the hard stuff later.
That's a good answer. For me, it was about getting finished with the degree part because I'd started out pre-med and had to, basically start over. And so it was just about completing the mission in that sense, and learning along the way was great and kind of helped me just realize that I do like the business side of life, even though I love science to death. I mean, and love that part and still do. And it kind of was really strange that later on I got the opportunity to do business in biotech, and that was a fantastic marriage, a dream marriage of things that I had learned. I think the most important thing I love about UTA and why I'm so passionate about it as an alum is the family and network that I've plugged into. And so even looking at Fort Worth, our kind of sibling next door, I wouldn't have plugged into that had I not been at UTA, which their relationship with Tech Fort Worth and the whole group over there in that campus led me to realize that even if you're in your own little tight knit community within UTA and you're kind of getting plugged in, which I highly recommend getting plugged into as many things as you can, enjoy your time there. Those things are going to lead you to other people, and those networks are going to expand and they're going to help you. But enjoy your time in college. I mean, I'm telling you, it is one of the most fun times in your life, where it should be, even though pandemics are, nobody has experience with that. And now that we do have a little bit of experience with it, how to make, at least a little bit of the best of a bad situation. And I would just say, stick around, even if you've ended up going through a tough end to your college life during the pandemic. Don't let that be the end. Come back around, go to events, go see the arts, go to a sporting event, go do something that's fun. Come back for homecoming. Keep building your network, keep plugging into people that you never know. Somebody that you meet along the way that you didn't think you're going to meet, it may help you later on get through a very, very difficult part of life. So just stay engaged, stay out in the community. And UTA has been a fantastic place for me personally. And I encourage anybody and everybody to, come back if you're an alum. I started later on, and they welcomed me with open arms, and all the resources were there for me, even as an old dude. So I have loved being back in it, and I can't thank UTA enough for every part of my journey.
Oh.
Scott, I love that you're ending it on networking, because next week we are having our end of the year celebration. So we are wrapping up the entire year at Epic Mavs. Normally we meet in person, so we're gonna try and make this as engaging and as fun as possible. So there's a little comment in the group chat asking about books. which I'm super excited that they brought up because we do have a homework assignment for next week. If you all can look for a book or a blog or anything that isn't already listed on our great reads for every entrepreneur, we're going to have some breakout sessions. We're going to run some polls. And so if you have a book that you can share with the group, we would love to hear what books you all love. Our meeting next week is going to be held on Zoom. So keep in mind, we're not going to use Teams next week. We're going to use Zoom. That's going to help us a little bit easier with the engagements. Not everyone can see our comments on Teams. So we want to make sure we get feedback from everybody. So stay connected. I'll send you all the link for next week. It will still be at 4:30 virtually. And if you want to tap into any of the other resources, Nikole, I know this is your first time at Epic Mavs. If you can download the app, you can go into the files. There you'll find all of our recorded meetings. You'll find that book list. You'll find a business card exchange sheet. So add your information. The networking can start here, even if we're virtual.
Wonderful.
So let's keep the momentum going. I know it's the end of the year. We're going to go into summer. But Epic Mavs doesn't stop. We have a deep dive program, which is a 7-week startup accelerator. We are running it virtually this year with Hayden Blackburn from Tech Fort Worth. We'll have more information on that next week. So reach out to me if you guys have any questions. And thank you so much to our guest speakers. I appreciate your time. And I think we all learned a lot today.
Thank you, Courtney, for doing this, and thanks for another great semester of Epic Mavs. Really appreciate it and all your work and everything that everybody does there to help people out along the way. It's a fantastic group, and I can't encourage people enough to get involved. And indirectly, of course, or directly, you're going to get involved with Tech Fort Worth, and hopefully it'll take you, your journey will take you to deep dive, like you mentioned, and that's a whole nother level. So I really encourage that. Good stuff, good people.
Yes. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much. Y'all take care.